every ship in Star Citizen should be about being the fastest, or the toughest, or the most meta. Sometimes it's just about how a ship makes you feel when you fly it. That's where I think the Kruger L-21 Wolf comes in. It's a retro-futuristic light fighter that pulls from some classic aviation designs and sci-fi in a way that makes it stand out immediately from the crowd of other ships the game has on offer. It's only the second ship in the Kruger lineup that they've ever released, and I think it's actually kind of brilliant, even if there are a few design details that might take some time to grow on me. But that's why I think it's probably worth talking about. So let's dive into the Wolf together, and if by the end of the video you enjoy it and you want to support me and the channel, don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button to show your support, because it really does help me out. With Kruger only having the P-52 and P-72 in their lineup until now, the designers had something rare here. Almost complete carte blanche to do something bold and exciting. There wasn't a long catalog of established Kruger silhouettes to pull from, which meant that the Wolf had to stand on its own as a statement piece and perhaps a blueprint for ships of Kruger going forward. The result is something quite striking, pulling from what I think are multiple different influences. The first comparison people make, and even I thought of, was the Naboo N1 starfighter from Star Wars, which by the way is one of my favorite ship designs from all of Star Wars. But I don't think it's actually a direct copy. In fact, I think both ships are actually drawing from the same sources. 1950s retro-futurist optimism, early jet aircraft, and late World War II fighters. And if you needed any more proof of the root of where this design is coming from, just look at the concierge livery alongside this British RAF Spitfire Mark 9. The long nose, the forward set canopy, they're all hard to miss, and it makes sense given that the ship team works out of Manchester, right in the historical cradle of British aviation. That inspiration is even clearer when the ship is landed, with the nose being pitched up slightly higher than the tail, just like a World War II fighter sitting on the tarmac, just like the Spitfire. But the Wolf isn't limited to just aircraft lineage. The sweeping bow-like profile and retractable rudder nod to a nautical design, like high-end superboats, blended kind of seamlessly into the silhouette. It's a mashup of influences that could have easily collapsed under its visual noise, but here I think it really works. That said, though, I'll admit that the rudder feels a little too derivative for my taste, especially for a spacefaring craft, so it just might take some time to grow on me. That said, I do think it does have a pretty cool impact on the overall silhouette. The seating position also maybe feels just a little bit visually high when you look at the whole form. With the canopy's lower views being blocked by the hull, I'm not sure this is actually for adding visibility. It really doesn't do anything, so if anything, if they'd sunk it further into the hull of the ship, it could have given them an opportunity to maybe lower and elongate the canopy, giving the ship with its canopy bulge a little bit more of a sleek and flowing profile. But I mean, this is a minor critique. I think it's actually still pretty good. Still, the overall form feels familiar while carving out a silhouette that's distinctly its own. The dual engines mounted, for example, on each swept-back downward canted winglet give the ship an iconic gesture, with the long and slightly bulging nose that ties back, I think, to the design language they first established with the P-52 and P-72. Even the engine nozzles recall the Merlin and Archimedes engines, although the Wolf does introduce something new here with this center-mounted cone cowling at the very end, which is very cool, especially when you start thrusting in the engine and the swirl of the exhaust comes out along with some sparks. It looks very cool. It's a very cool bespoke animation that they did for this. What really impressed me, though, was how the designers integrated the Wolf's utilities and components into their sweeping lines. The twin bespoke ballistic guns, for example, retract and spin into the hull when not in use, and the missile racks are tucked away into the wings seamlessly, in a way that you probably would have missed them unless I pointed them out to you. And while the ship team said that they weren't really going to be using layering in this design, I'd argue that you can still see a bit of it here. You can see it with this heavy protective cowling and hull plating up front, handling the stress and heat loads and maybe a bit of oncoming damage from the front, with more exposed mechanicals and details towards the aft section of the ship near the engine and exhaust sections. That to me is the strength of retro-futurist design and sci-fi. Go too alien and you risk breaking the suspension of disbelief, but ground a ship in some familiar cues like visible engines, aerodynamic lines, details, and we can distinctly read it as, speedy and powerful. It suddenly then becomes way more believable. Will 30th century spacecraft really have exposed engine components? Probably not, but to us, it reads as, raw performance, and that's why Wolf resonates, I think, so strongly in the same way that Star Wars ships still have resonated for fans for decades. And I gotta say that I'm sometimes guilty of also overlooking the sound design of some of these ships. The sound design of the Wolf really reinforces that impression beautifully. Without the right audio cues, the ship would probably just feel half-finished, but here there's this throaty hum and sharp roar of the engines that matches the visuals perfectly, really selling the Wolf as a machine for speed and strength. Even entering the ship is pretty memorable. Most fighters in Star Citizen stick to this familiar ladder and drop-in routine, but the Wolf turns it into an event. You approach from the rear port side and trigger this ladder release, then climb across the wing and into the seat in a bespoke sequence that I don't think I've seen on any other ship. It's a small thing, but it makes the Wolf feel really unique and a piece of machinery rather than just another cockpit. Inside, visibility is also really decent, although the opaque upper part of the canopy does make chasing high off-board targets a bit more reliant on UI than direct line of sight. But it's a bit of a sacrifice for the way the thing looks, and honestly, this thing is probably not going to be a metafighter anyway. The cockpit itself, however, is another standout feature. The curved integrated displays have an almost analog but definitely retro-futuristic vibe, and the side-mounted inward-canted joysticks also give this tactile, durable feeling compared to other manufacturers. It just feels special to sit in it, let alone to fly it. I guess it's reminiscent maybe of like Pagani with the way that they do their interiors for their cars, where everything's really mechanical and heavy and substantial. It kind of gives off that vibe. And speaking of flying, let's take a moment to just look at some of the stats for those of you guys curious about that. At its core, it's a single-seat light fighter. It's compact, it's nimble, and it's built for combat first, even though it's maybe more focused on fun. We'll get into that in a second. It measures at around 21.5 meters long, 10.5 wide, and just over 4 meters tall with a mass of around 37,000 kilograms. It's not a big ship then by any means, and that light frame then translates directly into its good handling. In SEM, it pushes around 230 meters per second, giving a kind of acceleration and turn rate you'd expect from something that's designed to nip around the heels of a Arrow or a Talon. When it's time to go hot, the Wolf also carries 2 bespoke size 4 ballistic Gatling guns, weapons that stay hidden when you don't need them and pop out in a really cool way when you do. As of the making of this video, they clock at around 677 DPS, but it might get changed depending on balance when this goes to live and how people use it. It's still a lot of bite though, as is right now for its compact frame, and I think it's aimed more towards being kind of a glass cannon. On top of that, it carries 8 size 1 missiles on dual racks, letting you mix up things a bit in dogfights or land a quick finishing strike if you need to. Storage though isn't probably what you're here for, but if you need it, it's got 450K of micro SCU internal storage units, accessed through its right wing in the rear, the same place where you find the ladder on the left wing. Plus it's got an integrated gun rack, just like you might expect from a lot of the modern ships coming out of CIG, so if you need to throw some weapons on there, you can do that if you need. All told though, the ship slots into Star Citizen neatly in the light fighter ecosystem. It's not a do-everything ship, it's just built for speed, precision, and hard-hitting bursts of firepower. And I think the point of it is it does all of that in style. So here's the thing then. The ship's design isn't just about numbers, I think, here. That would be looking past what it really is supposed to be. Plenty of ships in Star Citizen will outrace this thing, outgun it, or outturn the Wolf. And yet, there's a reason people still drive manual cars, or restore classic Porsches, or lovingly maintain warbirds that are pushing nearly a century old now. It's because sometimes it's not about the raw performance of a thing, it's about how the thing makes you feel when you use it. And that's what the Wolf seems to be aiming for here. It's a ship that's about fun, about excitement, about the joy of just jumping into it and going off and doing missions in the verse, even if it's not sitting at the top of the meta. So then, the L-21 is a striking new addition to the Star Citizen lineup, and it feels right at home in the hangars of players who probably are looking for a more classical aviation-inspired design. It probably won't become the meta ship like I said, but its acceleration, firepower, and unique evocative looks will definitely bring a smile to the faces of anybody who wants to fly it. At least, it's definitely bringing one to mind, and yeah, I already bought one. But what about you guys? Are you a fan of the design, or do the details like the little rudder on the bottom make it a bit harder to get behind? I'm sure Tarada's just gonna share it off in his next low fly reel anyway. Let me know though what you guys think down in the comments below. And as always, if you enjoyed the video, you know what to do. And if you want to support the channel a little bit further with a chance to have your referral code featured in the video and get some of those cool prizes from CIG, you can check me out over on Patreon. Hope to see you in the next one.